People, Deluded, I'm back again. I hope you're all doing well and safe, whoever you are, wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, according to the time zone you're in. I hope you're well and safe, like I've just said, and I'd like to extend that to your family. Now, in relation to Arsenal, there's F-all really. I mean, I could sit here and keep speaking about the same old transfer stuff that's happening. I mean, Dembele swap deals with this man's for sale, Mkhitaryan, Roma, Maitland-Niles, AC Milan, you know, any young striker, because of what's happening with our two young strikers, linked apologies to our club. And, you know, obviously I don't really like to speak about them, but I speak about it because there's nothing else to speak about. But in relation to David Luiz, I'm all sure you've seen in the last few hours on Sky Sports, allegedly he'll probably be leaving at the end of the season, whenever that is, if the season does get on, because he's only signed a one-year deal. So he was only contracted until 2020, we've learned. Obviously, popular belief was that it's a 2-year deal. We'll get onto it, and I did question it at first, but since I've been preparing this vid, I found out that, you know, there was an option of another year and things like that. So if David Luiz goes, obviously, how do I feel about that? Now, on this grand scheme of things, you know, if we exclude David Luiz, who he's been historically and who he is this season, if I look at it, you know, 30 odd years of age, you know, yeah, you're looking at these sorts to be your experienced player, but we shouldn't really be crying about it, really. If he leaves, he leaves. We should already have a core and things like that. I also have to question that, in theory, okay, like I said, it's essentially a 2-year deal because there's an option of another year, people. If he signed a 2-year deal and Luiz was a bit iffy, we'll be critiquing the club. But I do have to question, was it wise to, again, Luiz has been a shrewd addition, and definitely since Arteta's come in, he's been one of the, if not the best performers, let alone defenders. And a lot of people, myself included, every time we mention defence, we're speaking right now of who's going to partner Luiz at this moment in time. Is it going to be Pablo Mari if it's a permanent thing? Saliba, obviously if I had my way, a next centre-half, or even Mustafi. So Luiz has done his thing, but I have to question the club. Again, if we 8 million or however, what was it, 8 million or so we paid Chelsea. Now, that's not the biggest of fees, especially in today's day and age, people. But you have to question, for a team that claims we can't waste resources and all of this stuff, was it wise to spend £8 million on a one-year deal on a man that's going to sign a one-year deal and potentially leave? What, again, the 8 million couldn't have gone far for us, but what else could we do? And that's where, again, with no disrespect to Luiz, but I said this in a previous vid, you know, it seems like we're reactive in all incidences. Was we proactive in that we legitimately wanted David Luiz and he fitted the profile we wanted at the time in ball playing centre half, experience, you know, Premier League proven and all of these things? Or was we reactive in that we're looking for a centre half? We saw that obviously Lampard come into the team. Him and Luiz had different ideas. Lampard didn't include him into his plans. And we thought, you know what, let's put the feelers out. Luiz could stay in London. His family could stay in London. There's still the Premier League. We can offer him some decent wages. And we've got an experienced player sort of thing. Now, Luiz has made mistakes at Arsenal, but generally he's turned it around. I'd say if it was just based on this season alone, he's been a successful signing, as much as you can say that. Like I said, Luiz is Luiz, and his shortcomings are evident with, you know, it comes at a cost. He's very brave on the ball, but you know, Luiz at times he can be a bit of a madman. Now, he does deserve a new deal, and we were led to believe he was contracted until 2021 and he would sign another extension. So again, I guess what we're finding out now is that he's always been in talks over just signing a new deal, whether that's a 2-year deal at Arsenal or another year, or extending or exercising the option we allegedly have, people. It's a difficult one. Obviously, if Luiz leaves, on one hand, it shouldn't be a big deal. It shouldn't. Like I said, he's done a lot in the game. He's accomplished a lot. But in terms of longevity, he isn't there. No disrespect to Mustafi, but Mustafi's 28. We should be looking at these sort of men. We should be looking at Saliba. We should be looking at, especially if Mari's going to come permanently, you know, one out, one in sort of thing. And that's a shame, because I was keen to see more of the Luiz-Mari partnership in some degree, because, you know, one's Spanish, one's obviously Brazilian. You know, they can speak Portuguese. They're two of the most experienced members in the side. Both very decent ball playing. More so Luiz, in my opinion. One plays on the left-hand side. Sort of thing. And that's another thing for debate as well, people. Would Arteta be happy to let him go, in that Luiz typically You know, he's played on the right and the left, but, you know, if Marie was to be made permanent and we was to let Luiz leave on a free transfer and use whatever money we've allocated to make Marie sign in a permanent one, then he's got his left-sided centre-half, which allegedly has been a priority. He'd obviously have Saliba, and then you're looking at the Holdings and Chambers. There's opportunities for them to get games. Obviously, Holding allegedly is up for sale, and it throws up debate. Chambers, congratulations for being back in light training. Evidently, when football gets back on, he's not going to be at his best. Mavropanos probably goes out on loan. If Luiz was to leave, then I do think another centre-half will come, but I do think it would strengthen Mustafi's case of at least waiting out the campaign. Because again, if we're honest, and Mustafi's another one we need to sell, not based on this season, because he's turned it around of sorts, but, you know, we need to try and get some money, and you'd imagine you can get a 10-15 for Mustafi. He's only 28, but Luiz, I've spoken about Mustafi yesterday, his situation, so I don't really want to go into it again, but, you know, looking at it, like I said, forget about the season and who Luiz is. At this moment in time, it is a bit of a shock for me, and I do kind of think we have to keep Luiz. You know, me personally, you know, if you're going to sign a centre-half that's of standard for Arteta to work with, then anybody can leave. Any player can go. I love Aubameyang. If Aubameyang leaves and I have complete faith that we've identified a suitable target to replace him, I don't mind. Unless you're Messi, Ronaldo, for me, Neymar as well, anyone can be replaced, but the problem is replacement sort of thing, people. If Luiz has been there for a year, and we should have been looking at a centre-half anyways, and reports are consistent with that, have we been considering, alright, cool, if he's not signing a new deal, Marie's likely to be made permanent, we're bringing in my man, and let's phase him out of the team. I do think, I wouldn't go as far to say it's a bitter pill to swallow Luiz going, but I do think it is, for want of better phrases, people. I say this because for the young players, you see me do a couple interviews, and from what you hear on other sources, he's very good with the young players. He's said he wants to be a coach. He's a leader, and you hear how he's played pivotal roles in off-field matters. For me, on the field, he's a leader as well. You see Saka, listen, I'm not giving Saka deserves all his credit for the way he's playing and the consistency he's showing, but being at the Emirates, you can see Xhaka as well, but you can see Luiz talking with Saka, talking with the young players, talking with everyone. When things are going wrong, Luiz seems to be the leader, and I do think, at least for Arteta's sake, he needs that sort of man in his side, and I do think it's a blow for him, really, because, you know, that was going to be one of his lieutenants. Again, you can't discount Luiz's experience, people. And again, if you was to ask me in Mustafi and Luiz's case, would they be playing to this level a year from now? I don't know, people, but it is something to consider, especially because of his form. It kind of flips up what we're going to do with our defence now, people, and things like that. You know, I think Marie's signing is going to be made permanent. So is it Marie and Saliba? Is it Saliba and a new incoming centre half that we've been linked with? Is it a Mustafi and Marie thing? You know, two of the most experienced centre-halves. Does Socrates, his future is up for debate. Another one contracted in, well, technically, if Luiz is until 2020, Socrates is until 2021. Because if Luiz goes, in the case of keeping a body similar to Mustafi, especially if we struggle to bring players in, will Socrates be allowed to run down his deal? I don't know. This is all question marks for the team, people. For me, the main factor is in hindsight, and again, it's easy. I don't want to seem like fans that, you know, I like to be fair to the club, innit? We're allowed to have our concerns and stuff, but sometimes you got to give or take. For me as a fan, obviously hindsight's wonderful, but to spend £8 million on someone and not really be in a position of power to tie them down to another deal, it does scream kind of nonsense, really, because again, it's another season where we're going to have to highlight needing a centre-half anyways, especially if Luiz leaves. If Luiz wasn't in form and all of these things, then it wouldn't obviously be a thing and stuff. And one thing I like about Luiz is bravery, people. I like his bravery. Again, Pepe, Ceballos and Luiz, I know it hasn't been perfect for everyone, and they're all different footballers, but one thing I liked about them coming in, and especially with Arteta's coming in now, is bravery. At Arsenal, we haven't had players that want the ball, that demand it, that stand up to be counted, and I think they've all got bravery. Pepe's obviously a bit frustrating, but he's shown bravery to go past a man and go past another man and go past 100 man and then probably look at his phone and start dancing. Of course, he needs end product, but he's shown desire. Obviously, Ceballos can do some hospital passes, and at times, you know, he needs to improve, and there's individual question marks for Ceballos, but he's brave on the ball. Luiz, obviously, you know, with Luiz, he hasn't really made a mistake in recent games, but you know, with Luiz in the back of your mind, like Mustafi, you're expecting a clanger or two, but he's brave on the ball. Especially if we're going to do this playing out from the back stuff, people have to be brave on the ball, especially if we want to be Champions League and stuff. People have to be brave. Oh look, people. It genuinely has seen that. Look to me at times, people. Again, if you make a mistake, fans are going to clamour you. But it's like players have been scared, not so much under Arteta, but scared to make mistakes. And you need to try things. You need to stand up. You try a 30-yard pass, it doesn't work. We deal with it. You can't play for a top six side if you're not going to have the bravery. Look at Kevin De Bruyne. He could have all the technical qualities in the world, people. If he didn't have a bravery in a big game against Liverpool to get that ball and try to do these passes in 2 touches, and not just him, every other quality player in the top 6, they wouldn't be at these clubs. And we need to get that bravery back, and that goes for the collective, people. For what it's worth, Sky Sports said David Luiz's brief spell at Arsenal could be coming to an end with the Brazilian out of contract next month and no new negotiations over a new deal planned. It was widely reported that the Brazilian arrived from Chelsea on a 2-year deal last summer, but Sky Sports News has learnt that an agreement was only reached on an initial 12-month stay. I believe James Bainge, I can't say his name, but on Twitter said Arsenal have a 1-year option to extend David Luiz's contract, which expires on June 30th, but that has not been activated as of yet. So I don't know if that's an automatic thing that we can activate in line with obviously his contract stuff now. We keep it going for a year, or do we have to come to a new agreement, but we trigger some sort of meeting? Obviously, June the 30th, when we're approaching June, so we have just under a month to deal with that. Obviously, with what's happened globally, it throws it on its head. But if it was just in terms of performances, what you can only speak of. So far, Luiz, for me, has shown at least he gets another year extended at this club. Maybe in an ideal world, you look to reduce his role within the side. You know, you want to see a bit more from Saliba getting in, this new centre-half purely from longevity purposes. But we need experience. As much as I think there's... I would keep Marie, but there's perfect case to say, you know, we ain't seen enough for Marie. You go back. Socrates, you need to leave. Luiz, you need to leave. Mustafi, with your contracting, you need to leave. Obviously, that's not going to happen because we'd be losing too many bodies in defence. We'd also lose a lot of experience. Now, to be fair, the experience thing is thrown around a lot, but experienced players at Arsenal sometimes haven't put it in. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to you lot. For me, I've already told you lot my opinions on Saliba. We need to take our time with him. But we need to blood him in. We need to give him time. Because I don't think, for Holding, for example, I think, obviously, if you're not showing something on the training ground, and it's just a different thing. And Holding came from Bolton, so he did need a bit of time. But I do think Holding being starved of football has had an impact. Now, obviously, Saliba's got significant... I wouldn't say significant, but he's built a solid foundation in his last season or two with St Etienne. But as much as I want these young players to get chances, people, we do need an experienced centre-half, because with Saliba and depending on the new centre-half, you're relying on Saliba and a new centre-half partnership needs time to gel throughout the whole season. Saliba, I think, is going to show his quality for Arsenal and show that he's one of the best centre-halves in the world. But like I said in the previous vid, there's going to be good and bad moments, times he might need to come out the team and things like that. And not just him, everyone. So what I'm getting at is we do have if all the experienced players who... Actually, all of them, all the ones you would say were experienced, late 20s to early 30s, they all need to be moved on, but it would leave us with weak options, people. So at least one of them would have to stay. Obviously, I think Marie's signing is going to be made permanently, but I don't know our finances. So we might, say, you know what, Marie, you go back. We're going to do what we need to do for this other centre-half. Obviously, Mustafi and Socrates. And for Luiz, it's the perfect thing, because obviously he probably had one, he's of the age now where he's got to be open to everything, I'm sure he's open to staying at Arsenal. I'm sure if another Premier League team came with a decent proposition, sporting and financial package, he would listen to it. I'm sure, he's, forgive me if I'm wrong, he's played for PSG twice, I could be wrong. If PSG offered for him, he might entertain that. There's obviously America and these sort of projects. He's of the age where you've got to listen to this. He's spoken last week about wanting to play for Benfica, and I was thinking, I swear I said in one of these videos, I say he's contracted until 2021. Who knows? Now, if it happens with his thing expiring, he might say, I want to go to Benfica now. I don't know for his wages and stuff, but I'd imagine he'd have to reduce his terms to make that return to Benfica. So we're going to have to see what's going to happen, and I think this just adds even more to the uncertainty around what we're doing in defence, because we have a lot of quantity, not necessarily quality. Those who have been playing in form, I'm sure most people would sit here and say you don't confidently know if they're going to do this a year from now. And it's always interesting speaking about the defending stuff, because one minute, depending on who you speak to, let's sell Holding, let's keep Holding, let's sell Mustafi, let's bring him in, give Mavropanos a go. Saliba's going to need time, throw him in straight away. Luiz and Marie, send back Marie, we ain't seen nothing. There's no rights and wrongs, and it's not our decision to make. The club need to make a decision. You lot know my opinion already. If I had my way, then I would bring in a new centre-half of sorts, bring in a new centre-half, Saliba's a non-starter, obviously a non-starter in the sense that of course we're going to use him. So new centre half, Saliba. Holding's one's in the balance, because if again Holding's not someone I would actively push to be sold, but I'm not gonna lie, at this moment in time, if I'm in pre-season and someone says, yo, 20 million for Holding, or Palace or something says 20 million for Holding with a sell-on clause, I'm gonna entertain it. Holding might go on to be an England international or something, and we might look at it, but that's a young prof. Equally, if someone offers him a loan spell, I might say, you know what, Holding, since you've been at Arsenal, you've had stages where you've been a regular in the team, but you haven't been an outright regular. Go somewhere where you can play 38 games and we'll see what you're on, sort of thing. Because you have 3 years left in your deal, 2 years by the end of next year. You know, resale value, we either sell or renew his deal. And obviously keep him inside. I would probably keep him. So I'd say Saliba, Holding, new centre half. I would actually like to keep Luiz and Marie, to be fair with you. So that's about 5 options. And I would reserve it for Chambers, really, because I think Chambers would have got an opportunity under Arteta. But like I've just said, that's about 6 centre halves. I believe you need 4 or 5. So someone probably has to miss out. So that could be, you know, Holding go out on loan for a year. Then when you come back, Luiz is gone. Do you get what I'm saying, people? We'll have to see what happens in that regards. And again, obviously I've said the defenders I'm keeping, but there's a whole bag of defenders. Mavropanos for me will go out on loan again, get some more football, you know, develop even more, see what sort of player he becomes. Is that a player we can make a profit on, or is that a player that we can use and stuff? Because as a fan, I think we're yet to see real potential from Mavropanos. I think we see dribs and drabs, but he looks a bit raw. You know, from all the people I speak to, especially some of the players at under 23s level, they say he's a serious defender. He's strong, he can play a ball, and obviously them and they are training with him. So I don't know. On the topic of under 23 defenders, if I was an under 23 defender, I'd probably think my future lies away from Arsenal. I'd try, but you know, you've got too many people ahead of you, and we're talking about bringing in a new centre half, especially if you're 19, 20, it's still young, but I would probably keep it moving, people. Lastly, for what Luiz did say at the time in relation to Benfica, he said, I always said that I would like to end my career at Benfica. In football, everything changes. What is true today, tomorrow is a lie. But my feeling is not. So again, anything can happen. It might not happen. Who knows what's going to happen? I think he's even spoken previously about wanting to end his career in his homeland. So, you know, if we had him contracted until 2021, he might say, do you know what? I've done my thing at Arsenal. I'm going to go Benfica for a year. You know, after Benfica, I'm going to go back to, I don't even know what club he started his career in, for example. And I'm going to call it a day after that year. So the next 2 years are vital for him in terms of sentiment, in terms of playing. And listen, we have to speak about it. Finances. I'm sure just from being a footballer, he's got good finances. Luiz has businesses. You know, he's got a restaurant in London. He's got things like that. His business partner's willing, so he knows how to keep money and things. But on top of that, I'm sure a man that's played for Chelsea, played for Arsenal, played for PSG, you know, I'm sure, especially playing for PSG, I'm sure his bank balance, there's never going to be an issue and things like that. But if it was just based on this season, I think Luiz deserves to stay, and I think if he does go, it adds to the uncertainty. Obviously, Luiz might stay with what's happening globally. Like I said, the release clause allegedly ends on the 30th of June, so we'll have to see what happens in that regards. But for now, there's really nothing more to add. I've been here longer and rambling longer than I usually do. Don't want to waste any more of your time. So, yeah, I'm going to get out of here. People, Deluded, it's always a pleasure. Yeah, man, comment, like, subscribe, check out my other vids. Until we meet again, people.